So the question is, if you're working in a traditional project management world, I know everybody has qualms about the word traditional, but what people have always done, traditional project management world, and you're, I guess, daunted by this idea of agile and the changes that need to happen in order to get there, then probably a Kanban strategy is a way that you can gain benefits over a longer period of time. So what lots of teams and organizations get benefit from jumping to a Scrum process, right? It highlights where you've got problems. It very quickly identifies things in your organization that inhibit the ability for you to move towards an agile process. But quite often, depending on the organization, that can be too much, too fast. You can end up with just bad Scrum, right? We're going to call everything with the agile terminology, use the Scrum terminology, but in actual fact, we're not going to make any changes to the way we do things. So maybe a better approach for those types of organizations that don't have the willingness to change. And by the way, the best time to change the way you do things in an organization is when your organization has completely and utterly failed to deliver or achieve something. That's when people are most open to change. So that's where you might bring in a radically different process like Scrum. But the advantage of a Kanban strategy is you start from where you are right now. Kanban strategy does not require you to change the way anybody works. I'll say that again. A Kanban strategy, applying a Kanban strategy, creating and applying a Kanban strategy does not require anybody in your organization to change the way they work right now. That's really important to understand. Kanban is not a way of doing things. It's not a process in itself. It's observational. It observes your existing process and gives you data and information about how effective it is being. That's the purpose of a Kanban strategy. So you don't need to change the way you work. You just need to document how you work right now. That's your definition of workflow, right? You write down how you work right now, and then you need to collect some metrics. Once you've collected those metrics, you're going to look at them and you're going to see if there are any patterns that allow you to identify things that need to change. That's it. So one person, you as the project manager in your organization, can yourself implement parts of a Kanban strategy. You can at least collect the data, right? You can load it out of Jira or Azure DevOps into tools. You can pull it into a spreadsheet and figure this stuff out, right? So you have the start date and the end date, the age of the work items, because you get the start date and the end date, you get the cycle time, right? How long things take to go through the process, and then you can do some data analysis on that. You can start to you can plot it in a cycle time scatter plot and look for outliers. There's a number of graphs that you would definitely use within the context of Kanban, and each of those graphs are there to visualize the flow of work through your system, right? Once you visualize the flow of work through your existing system that you've not changed how anybody works, you'll then see things that you want to have a conversation about. It's actually quite startling how easy it is once you do the graph, and somebody like myself, who's been trained to read the graphs and have read graphs from lots of teams, point at some things and say, what's this? Why is this group of things kind of like this? And then you're like, oh yeah, I can see that too. Once you understand the patterns that you're looking for, it's very easy to identify, at least initially, right? When we've not made any changes to the system, it's very easy to identify anomalies. It's going to be super obvious. You'll have things like lots of dots clumped together. You're like, what's that? Well, that was a release. Okay, well, is that the best way to do that? or you've got all of these dots way up on your cycle time scatter plot because they took a really long time to complete. It's like, why did these all take a long time to complete? Well, we've got to get the architectural review board to approve this thing, and they only sit once every 6 months. Oh, right, so you can only get architectural stuff approved once every 6 months. What happens if you need a change in between? Sorry, I'm using this example because I worked in this environment. What happens if you need a change in between? Well, you need to stop work, put it into the architectural review board, and they meet every 6 months. So you need to wait. And it could take years to deliver a product because you need to make changes to it. Those types of things, you probably already know some of them, right? You already know that some of those things in your organization are broken. You know it. A Kanban strategy will give you the data to prove it. And if you can prove it, you can put it in front of somebody who can do something about it and say, look at the data. I would like to run an experiment. Stuff's taking a really long time to complete. I think this is the problem. This data is telling me that this is the problem. I'd like to change this, and we can see if the data improves. You just change your system. You just optimized your system. Keep doing that. And you'll get to the most optimal system for the type of work that you're doing, which will be different for every team, every group, everybody, right? But that's how you make that transition. You need to understand how the system works in order to be able to make the change. So how long would it take to transition from traditional project management to Kanban? As long as it takes, right? You optimize as much as you need at whatever speed you want, and that's up to you. If your current system of work is failing you, then you would benefit from creating and applying a Kanban strategy. Our professional Kanban trainers and consultants are ready to help. Don't wait. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll improve. Get in touch below.